So thank you very much, moderator, and a pleasant good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session on social and emotional safeguarding vulnerability. I hope that what I have to share with you is interesting and stimulating, and that it will generate discussion and sharing of ideas in this very precious space that we are privileged to be in at this point in time. Okay. So if we are to respond to the well-being of the whole child, we must respond to the social and emotional needs in spaces that are not only safe and secure and nurturing, but also spaces that are also challenging. In our unique and challenging spaces, diversity is a key constant. The vulnerable learner includes those with a variety of special educational needs. And in the Caribbean context, that variety is particularly diverse. And it includes those at risk for failure academically, socially, and emotionally, and those marginalized for various reasons, whether it is for poverty, or whether because they're living in a rural area or even an urban area, or because of their gender. What then are those skills, those skills that are needed in order to zero in and cope with this variety and this marginalization that exists in this region? Well, this morning we are talking about social and emotional skills and social and emotional learning. And we can identify 5 of those skills. And it's the same here in the Caribbean. It's self-management, it's relationship skills, it's social awareness skills, it's self-awareness, it's responsible decision making. And I want to say that social and emotional skills need to be taught as targeted skills. We need to target those skills if we are to achieve the kind of inclusion that we expect. Okay, the minor aspects of SEL development are, of course, self-regulation, acted, feeling, and all of this is true. But in the inclusive environment then, we can view inclusion as not only a process, but a philosophy. I think most of the Caribbean really adopts the UNESCO lens when trying to define inclusive education and what it's all about. We see it as a process of addressing and responding to a diversity of needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures, communities, and reducing exclusion from education and within education. And that's basically through without. I haven't heard of any region within the Caribbean where they reject the UNESCO notion of what inclusion is at the core. And at the core of this, the goal is really that the whole education system will facilitate learning environments where teachers and learners embrace and welcome the challenge and the benefits of diversity. Within an inclusive educational approach, learning environments are fostered where individual needs are met and every student has the opportunity to succeed. So inclusion really then is a journey which begins with an understanding and an embrace, an ability to embrace, therefore, the rights of the vulnerable, a recognition of the special needs and the strategies that are available to reduce marginalizations. This is the only way, really, towards an inclusive system that would respond to the SEL, or social and emotional learning needs of the vulnerable. We know that emerging from the human rights movement and then the move towards Salman Alka in 1994, where the first reference of inclusive educational for vulnerable learners was made. Tremendous progress has been made in the Caribbean in terms of speaking to and a sensitization of those needs. Okay. So we can say that really the journey towards the inclusive education is aimed at dismantling those barriers that exist for learners with not only disability, but learners who are marginalized. And we know that those key policy documents that I just mentioned, the Salman Alka Statement, DACA, all of those really support a vision that inclusive education is really a journey that will end with system transformation, really. So, social and emotional. We want to, what is the framework then in the context of that journey towards inclusive education? What is the social and emotional framework? And it is basically a framework that is common throughout, and in the Caribbean, one which we have adopted. We look at social competence, we look at emotional competence, we look at behavioral functioning and self-regulation. And I'll just take a brief moment to speak to what each of these is about. Social competence, degree to which children are effective in their social interactions with others, including making and sustaining social connections, demonstrating cooperative skills and flexibility, and adjusting behavior to meet the demands of different social contexts. And we can see, or we can understand how relevant this is in our own Caribbean context. Okay, emotional competence, the ability to understand the emotions of self and others, read emotional cues and react to others' emotions, regulate one's own emotions and understand the consequence of one's own emotional expressiveness. And if we look at behavioral functioning, where we understand that really behavioral functions exist on a continuum, and when we're talking about social and emotional skills, we recognize that behaviors that are developmentally inappropriate or that impede a child's ability to adapt and function in their families, early care and education settings or with peer group are considered to be problematic. So we recognize that within the whole framework of social and emotional responding. And of course, self-regulation, the ability to focus attention, manage emotions, control and control behaviors. And all of these exist within the framework of a diverse culture, the desire to develop and approach the demonstration of adult skill levels, and of course a curriculum that is sensitive to gender, that is sensitive to marginality, that is sensitive to our own understanding of the reality as we see it. So what are the main issues? What are the main issues? For the purpose of this discussion this morning, I want to talk about issues in two main areas, those that are conceptual and those that are measurement related as we talk to social and emotional development and social and emotional learning. Conceptual, there's really a need to identify those borders of social and emotional development. SEL needs to be clearly identified as separate and apart from other domains such as cognitive development, etc. There seems to be a tendency, and we have to be very careful about how we adopt certain aspects of cognitive development and related to social and emotional development. Yes, executive functioning is important, but is it a part of SEL, or is it a moderator of SEL, or does it point towards SEL development, SEL learning, and help us to better understand it? So there's a need for that clarity in terms of conceptualization of what exactly is SEL. So there's a need to clearly delineate also the subdomains of SEL. So we can put all of that together into the conceptual type issues, the need for clear and easily understandable and easily identifiable domains and subdomains as we refer to social and emotional learning. And then we can look at another issue when we speak to SEL, and it's very common in our region. They need to remove what we refer to as conceptual clutter, or what we refer to as the jingle-jangle fallacies. Jingle fallacy, the use of a single term for a wide variety of constructs, right? And we can discuss this at the end of the session a little bit more. And jangle fallacy, the use of different terms to refer to the same skill. And all of this is happening in our environment when we speak to SEL. So those are issues that we need to resolve. When we speak to measurement, there's a dearth of psychometrically appropriate measures. The quality and reliability of data collected from parent and teacher reports versus direct observation. In my own experience, having collected some data using the CVE instrument was really a task, because some of our student teachers actually went out there with the instrument in order to collect data. And the instrument itself, whereas about 2 of the modules in the instrument referred to SEL, it was just a small section a small section, and the interpretation by teachers within the same school was so so different. And of course, we had great difficulty with parents really understanding how to use the measure. And we ended up with, you know, vastly different descriptions of similar SEL experiences. So there's a dearth of psychometrically appropriate measures. And really the measures should also reflect the context in which behaviors occur. And this is not readily available. And there is a need for those measures to be developed within our own context so that the languaging and the responses and so on are normed on our populations and could be easily understood. Then there's a lack of assessment continuity. Lack of continuity between assessments that are early age and later age is very difficult in Trinidad and Tobago, or I would imagine within the region, to really assess a child at the preschool level, and then at the primary level, and then at the secondary level, and be able to describe that progression in a meaningful way, because simply there is a lack of continuity when we look at the measures. And then of course, there exists overlap between distinct competencies. So those are some of the issues, and I've spoken to them in two main areas: conceptual issues and measurement issues. Okay, I think I just want to kind of sum up here a little bit. If I could see the top of my screen a little bit. Policy and practice imperatives, what are they there? In terms of what we experience in the Caribbean in the area of social emotional learning, and in the case of SEL development. Subdomains, definitions are needed. Then there's a need for conceptual and definitional clarity. There's a need for measures which are appropriate, as we said before, for young children in diverse settings with comprehensive coverage of SEL subdomains. And of course, once the subdomains are covered, then the constructs within those domains also need to be iterated and really mapped to interventions and mapped to actual classroom strategies that could be useful for intervention. There's a movement away. There needs to be a movement away from heavy reliance on parent and teacher reports and towards direct assessment. As I said before, using the child behavior checklist, the data we collected from that was quite questionable because of heavy subjectivity and really everybody being at a different pace when it comes to the measurement of social and emotional learning. And I would say not only direct assessment, but integrated assessment. So we not only look at SEL by itself, but we integrate SEL with other modules. If we want to speak to inclusion of the child, and the child is the whole child, then certainly it's not appropriate to just map SEL alone by itself without mapping other aspects of what makes up that whole child. So I believe that I will end there. I will end there by saying that we in the Caribbean must really promote need to promote a common societal understanding of inclusion, and therefore the role that SEL has to play in that common societal understanding, and how important it is to recognize that SEL development and SEL social emotional learning is part and parcel of what makes up that whole child that we want to engage in inclusion.